just as a personal thing, is to mention that today is the 20th of March, and Leah Hochman and I will be doing our presentation at Resnick on the 24th, Sunday, coming up, the 24th, and it'll be from 10 to 11:30 at Resnick. And I have put out a plea, pathetic as it is, that even if you've heard me talk about it before, I'm doing all that I can to generate attendance to be impressive so that Wilshire will see that programs like this have a place. So if you would only become part of this, and we are helping to change the program content at the synagogue. So Sunday, March 24th. Now, and of course, if you've already bought the book and not had it autographed, we throw in free autographs for those who show up. Now, there are things happening in calendar order and then out of order. One is that there is a major vote coming up in Israel on March 31st. On March 31st, they will vote whether or not to extend the exemption of young Haredim from serving in the IDF Tzahal, in the Israeli army. And the defense minister, Yoav Gallant, has basically put out an ultimatum saying that if the Knesset doesn't make it obligatory for, at this time with a war, make it obligatory for yeshiva students to become part of Israel's civilian citizen army, then he's going to tear down the coalition. He's going to leave the coalition, and that'll be that. So one of the things that may be happening, we can't do anything about this except to say it's happening, is that on March 31st, there is a chance, we don't know, for the government to fall. And it'll be over the issue of ultra-Orthodox accepting draft into the Israeli army. What Gallant and Gantz and others have proposed is that the Haredim must either serve in the IDF or take on any other service which is national service. But we have to leave it like that. I just want you to be aware that as a background to all the other noise. Secondly, Deborah Lipstadt, who was the State Department's anti-Semitism and envoy, told the Anglo-Jewish press in America that anti-Semitism is growing and that the response to anti-Semitism should not be, this is careful, don't make your lives as Jews dependent upon fighting against anti-Semitism. Make your lives as Jew an affirmative embrace of your Jewish identity. Build a Jewish community, build a Jewish identity, and this will be long-term the best result. So that's Deborah Lipstadt's position. She said, I have said to some of you already, I have stopped seeing Magen David's Jewish stars on anybody during my walk on the Venice boardwalk. I don't see them anymore. I see plenty of crosses, other kinds of stuff, don't see Magen David. Either Jews have stopped walking, or people are reluctant to display their Jewish identity. And she said, I hope people will not remove their mezuzahs from outside their door and so forth. So that's going on as well. Now, with this community, I will share something that Risa already knows, but it has bothered me now for 24 hours. So I'm going to drop it on you, so I'll let it bother you and it won't bother me anymore. So that's only fair. I have a small group of people. There are 4 of us all told, 1 in Canada, 1 in Israel, 1 in New York, 1 in Santa Monica. And this is a group of people who have been friends for over 40 years. This is a group of people that every one of them has citizenship in Israel. And it's a discussion of what's going on in the Jewish world. And we certainly don't agree with each other, but we have serious conversations every 4 or 6 weeks. Yesterday, I lost it. And for the first time in this long conversation, but actually for the first time in conversations about Israel, no matter what outrageous things people have said, I know the technique. I can pull back. I do not confront and I don't yell. I attempt to display listening and respect, as we all should do. Yesterday, I lost it. So on this regular Zoom call with really old friends, when I was told that anti-Semitism is mostly a fabrication of the Anglo-Jewish press, that it's not a real thing in America, that Hillel does nothing of any good, nothing on campus, and Chabad is even worse. And here's the quote that sent me over the wall. The only difference between Hillel and Chabad is that Hillel serves beer and Chabad serves whiskey. And okay, I have now confessed. I did send a letter of apology this morning. Don't laugh, Risa. I am a very sensitive person.
You should
have. I shouldn't have yelled. I yelled. I should not have yelled. And I just am telling you this so that you too know it's hard sometimes not to yell. But trust me, my yelling did not convince the guy who said this that he was wrong.
If you could have such a divergent opinion on that subject, how have you been such good friends for so long?
Oh, you don't know the people I have friends with, Steve. You don't know. If I would go through a list, about the gentleman in Florida who believes that Trump is a left-winger, and that and we have been friends also since the 80s. He attends every Republican national event. He is a major donor to the Republican Party. We are very good friends. And I have never yelled at him. I have said things like, we're going to change the topic now, aren't we? And you kind of elide into something better. But okay, so now you bear my guilt and I'm free. It was that's a Jewish thing to do. So I put it on you, and maybe as a lesson for all of us. I am embarrassed. Okay. Chuck Schumer. I am very interested in your responses to what Senator Schumer had to say. You know, Biden then reported he made a good speech. He expressed serious concern, shared not only by him, by many Americans. And he said that his staff notified about the speech in advance. Nancy Pelosi praised Schumer, calling it as an act of love for Israel. The Prime Minister's presentation proved the necessity of Chuck Schumer's speech. Netanyahu called the comments by Schumer totally inappropriate. I am on. No one should have answered the phone. I'm sorry. I don't know who answered the phone. Oh, in any event, Netanyahu called the comments totally inappropriate. Trump said, all of a sudden, he dumped on Israel. He knows what he's doing. He dumped Israel. I mean, he just essentially said that Bibi should take a walk.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to bring up on this, there is an organization filled with self-important people. And that group is called the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. There are about 50 presidents of major Jewish organizations, all of whom are blessed with sufficient ego to be part of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. And by the way, it is extremely powerful. It has the best international conferences in Israel year after year. It has direct access to the White House, and it is a very serious place. And yes, I was a member of that elite group for a while. The Conference of Presidents had an hour private conversation with Schumer. The Conference of Presidents can do that. They had a private hour with Schumer, and then they issued a statement. Starts off with all the warm political, Schumer's been good for Israel forever. They have grave reservations and are deeply disappointed by what Schumer said. That's my background. And now I'd like to sit back and listen to your responses, not long, brief, let other people. Howard is up.
Well, first of all, as someone who always yells and then always regrets it, I'm glad to, and never gets a good, so far has never gotten a good result out of it. I'm amazed or interested to hear that you yourself yelled, and it tells me there's something going on in the world.
Yeah. Yes, I need a little pill. Yes, Howard.
Pretty amazing. As far as Schumer goes, it's just a little tidbit of information that I have because my son, Jonathan, was a summer intern in Schumer's office. So he offered like 35 years ago some comments about what which is that Schumer is a guy, he certainly will never not let you know that he not only went to Harvard, but he was top of his class. He has an extremely high opinion of himself. And I read in the Times that had an article about this process of coming up with this speech, which apparently took him quite a long time, like a month. that although he generally consults with people about when he's going to make an important speech, in this case, in the case of Jewish matters, he consulted only with himself. So he came up with this idea based on his own judgment, and I don't know where he, I mean, I can see where he's trying to square the circle is what he's trying to do, and I don't know really what to make of it. His speech is very schizoid because it says one thing and then it says the opposite.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad.
Rabbi, I don't know if you happened to see the op-ed by Thomas Friedman yesterday in the New York Times, but and I am far from being any kind of expert in this area, but I think Friedman, for whom I have a tremendous amount of respect, applauded Schumer and acknowledged that the only way forward for Israel is to work towards a two-state solution, and that is anathema to Bibi, and hence the conclusion that the only way forward is for Bibi to go. So it seemed to me to be a pretty compelling argument, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Steve.
I agree with a little bit of what Schumer said, but I haven't. And if Biden saw it in advance and let him and didn't make a comment, it's embarrassing. Number one, you don't tell another country how to run their government, when to have elections, and it's not like we're talking about Putin. We're talking about a country that's probably more democratic than we are in the United States at the moment. And yes, we need a two-state solution. And it's not that Bibi's always been a one-state solution guy. The problem is twofold. One, how and when. You can't tell Israel, make a two-state solution happen. They're powerless to do it alone. They don't make the demand on Hamas. And the thing that drives me berserk, and the media is complicit, Hamas, the PA, they all say, we want a state, we want a state. The media interprets that as, we want a two-state solution. What they're saying is, we want a state and it's one state. They let the misperception go on because that way they seem like they're on the high ground when in fact they're the problem. But you don't tell another country how to run their country.
Exactly. You're right.
Okay, please, no applause. No applause.
No,
But
Steve is right. Steve is right.
okay, I'd like to add that staying out of another country's political process is really important, period. Bibi has scheduled now, I'm not sure the day, could be today, scheduled a private briefing for the Republican leadership of Congress. And part of me says, Steve, that reeks of interference in another democratic sovereign nation's political process, direct interference.
I don't think so, but and it's totally inappropriate. I think it's very stupid when we need to get the Democrats back to where Israeli support is bipartisan, but he's not telling us how to run the government. He's telling them, well, and the diplomats, everybody, we have relations. He can talk about how we should have a relationship. That's different than trying to run the government.
Okay.
Well, can I interject?
Brad, please, absolutely.
I think there's a bit of irony here, because if we think back a few months ago, where the debate was raging about the judicial reform, we were very eager to put our 2 cents in on that. And now all of a sudden it's anathema for us to speak about Israeli politics. I mean, it seems to be to me, there's a great deal of inconsistency in that.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I am now open. We've had some people who have not shared a feeling about the Chuck Schumer thing. Okay, I see over here either Herb or Sylvia. I never do know.
Okay, this attitude about you owe us and it's none of your business what we do is really, really old. We were in Israel 40 years ago or something, and we were told that it was our obligation as Jews in the diaspora to send them all the money they needed, but we had no right to question what they did with it. And they're doing the same thing now. They're saying, you owe us support in all kinds of ways, but you have no right to criticize or question or whatever, anything that we do. But Netanyahu has spoken to the Republican leadership in Congress without the permission of the president in the past. I mean, this is not a new behavior. They, in a sense, tell us what to do when it suits their purpose, but we're not allowed to have opinions on what they're doing. I think Schumer was very brave. I mean, I know that he's got 4 more years on his term, and his nice little folks in Brooklyn are not going to not reelect him. But he's a national leader. And to do what he did out of his own deep convictions and his own experiences and personal history as a practicing Jew, I think shows a great deal of honor and a great deal of courage. And I don't know, thank you, Doris. I don't know how much I agree or I don't agree, but I do think he was right to say what he felt.
Okay. We're open for other comments, then we'll move on. But I know that people agree, disagree. I'm looking, Steve, for a couple of new people, if just to give a little bit of space here, if anyone else wants to respond. Okay, not seeing any. Okay, I see one. Okay, Harv, go for it.
Okay. A few years ago, Bibi did come over and talk to our Congress, not invited by our president, because of the Iran deal. I think everybody has a very short attention span and a memory about that. He did interfere in our politics. We ended up with Mr. Trump as president. I just remember that. That bugs me. The other thing I want to bring up is we got to be very careful when we criticize Israel. It turns out that we have a big megaphone when Jews criticize Israel. And although I'm in agreement with Schumer, I think that he should have been a lot more careful in his criticism of Israel. I think he should have done it privately. I think he should have toned it way down publicly. That's my opinion.
Okay, before we go back to 2 people who have already spoken, last chance for anybody else to speak. This is hot stuff. There is no question. Okay. I see Steve. Okay, Doris. Yes.
Yeah, I think what he did was terrible. He's a Jew. He should never have done that and never have said that about what Israel should be doing. Israel is a free country and they have to do what they have to do. And they certainly don't need Mr. Schumer a Jewish guy. He's probably not a practicing Jew, my guess is. And,
He is, Doris.
Yes,
He actually is a practicing Jew.
he's a practicing Jew? Oh.
Yes.
You aren't.
Yeah. But please go ahead.
No, I don't like what he did. I think it was wrong. And I don't think you should tell another country how they should run it. And that's it. And
Okay.
I disagree with a lot of the things people said today because I think he's a piece of shit. Pardon my French.
Okay, let's see.
What happened to my hand?
Wait a second. That didn't get into the transcription. That didn't get into the transcript. We were being censored. Okay. Howard, Steve.
I feel the question of whether somebody had the right to say something or somebody else was offended or out of bounds is really peripheral, not very important, certainly. to getting any kind of a solution. But what is really, so I'm not, this will go on forever and people will be mad at each other. But the question of the two-state solution, that on the other hand is very, very important because it underlies everything everybody always says, blah, 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 blah. And then there will be a two-state solution. And that's why I believe all this. And Schumer thinks there should be a two-state solution. And Brett Stevens, in his thing that he wrote today, what everybody should do, said, and then there should be a two-state solution. Well, to me, I mean, I don't know that much, but I've followed it on and off for a long time. I came to a conclusion about the two-state solution quite a long time ago, but it was crystallized by Carolyn Glick, the right-wing commentator who wrote a book, half of which was a very detailed, documented, chapter-by-chapter analysis of the two-state solution leading up to what she really wanted to say in the book. But that half of the book was why the two-state solution is a fraud and a phony and a scam. And it's all documented. I can't, I couldn't possibly explain it or go into it in 3 seconds. But the two-state solution, people talk about the two-state solution and they even say, oh, and it'll be a demilitarized Palestinian state. By the way, everybody has their idea of what the two-state solution is. The Palestinians' idea of the two-state solution is kill all the Jews, go back to the borders of 48. 75 years of occupation, and the left-wing progressive Jews of America is the Palestinians will be ponies gambling in the fields and they'll all love us, and it's going to be, we're going to only deal with the Palestinians that are a partner for peace, and by the way, it's going to be a demilitarized state. Never mind the fact demilitarized state itself is a complete absurdity. When has there ever been a demilitarized state with a population greater than 200,000 people, like Andorra? It just hasn't happened. There's no such thing as a demilitarized state. So that itself is a fantasy, but the whole two-state solution is a fantasy, and anybody that falls back on that is not telling the truth. And that's why I think Bibi probably is smarter than a lot of people. Yeah,
Okay, if I had like a bell to ring, I would ring a bell. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first time in any conversation I have ever hosted that someone said anything positive about Carolyn Glick. Shehechianu. My personal reaction to Carolyn Glick is that she is a rabble-rousing idiot.
Well, read her book. Read that.
Far be it for me.
I have 2 copies of it. I'll give you one of my.
No, don't. It can't come in my apartment.
My mind is made up. Don't confuse me with facts. It's very well documented.
Oh, Carolyn Glick. Oh, yes. She is the best. Okay, okay, Steve.
I think there's a difference between telling a government how to run itself and expressing or trying to influence an opinion about a policy that impacts your country, other countries, Iran, the diaspora. I always think has the right to give an opinion on policy and action. That's very different than the internal workings of government and telling an official to resign and hold an election. That's not the same thing as saying, we really think that your judicial plan is horrible. Those are nowhere near the same, and it's where you draw the line.
I'm gonna put a timeout on this. Now that we have thoroughly discussed the mechanism, I'm going to give you a minute to discuss the message.
I agreed with a lot of the message, other than where he tried to tell how you should establish and run a government. We should have a two-state solution. It's not going to happen automatically. I think a lot of what he said is impractical, but it's not unfair to express an opinion on certain policies. And I agreed with many of them.
Not the expressing we're talking about, it's the content. So you're saying that whether or not it's practical, but you agree with you agree that Bibi should get out by legal means and elections.
No, I'm saying, no, that's going to the party shouldn't be saying. But talking about two-state
You
solution,
agree with the principle that it can't move forward if Bibi is still in office.
no, I don't think it can move forward right now, whoever is in office. So it's like a moot point. And I don't think that's not what he should be expressing. He shouldn't be talking about Bibi and the leadership being bad. He should be
Went back to the other topic. I'm trying to keep on the content.
You could talk about the policy, whether we should have two states, his views, how it should be approached. They could disagree. That's very different than telling a country, get rid of your leader and have an election.
Okay, you're back on style, and we're not going to do that.
It's not style. That's part of the content too. I'm saying some content was okay and some wasn't.
Okay, we are going to move on from that. I think that speech is going to be remembered a long time, and it's going to be brought up. I suspect that the so-called progressives in the Democratic Party, which is a group I am not aligned with, will be quoting pieces of Schumer's document. I think that the Muslim citizens of Dearborn, Michigan will be quoting it because in many ways, Schumer was addressing them, even though, of course, they were not mentioned. They were the unmentioned target of the presentation. Two groups, the progressives and the American Muslims in Dearborn, west of Michigan. And I view what Schumer did two ways. One, I am reasonably comfortable with his content. You can always disagree. I'm reasonably comfortable with his content, but I understand that his motivation was not high-minded concern for Israel as much as it was political concern for the forthcoming presidential election. And I think that I don't say that's evil. That's the nature of the political process. But I think that what he was doing was helping to pull Biden out of the situation in which many people think he's not doing, some people, whatever, people feel that he's not doing enough to defend the Palestinians and so forth. So my view of the motivation is a little bit different. And I also know that the White House said it was shown to some staffers before it was delivered. When I'm not yelling inappropriately, am a cynic. And I do not believe that Chuck Schumer wrote all of this by himself without consultation with key people in the White House. I could be wrong. I will admit I'm wrong when I read the history book. But okay, that's me. So we've taken care of Chuck Schumer, right? Okay. Now, how many of you seen the movie Zone of Interest? The Zone of Interest. It won an Academy Award this go round, The Zone of Interest, for the best, I guess it's going to be the best foreign feature. Is that right, Reese? What?
Won for best writing and best screenplay.
Okay.
I don't think it won for best foreign film.
Okay. Now,
I could be wrong.
It did.
I could be wrong.
It was best international
well.
feature.
okay. So the director Jonathan Glazer accepted his Oscar and delivered what became the start of a firestorm over what he had to say. The movie, by the way, I so recommend it, setting aside the firestorm. The movie is this pseudo documentary of the life of Hess, Rudolf Hess, who was the commandant of Auschwitz. And it really was a docudrama. I guess that's a good thing. It's mostly true, not 100%. A docudrama of Hess's family living wall adjacent to Auschwitz. And what made me happy was that this was another way to keep the ugly horror of the Holocaust before people. Nice, artistic, but it's a new piece that will be shown and enjoyed. And once again, I do recommend it. It's very, very interesting study of human beings. Glazer got up before the Oscar crowd and declared that he and his producers were men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation that led to lots of deaths. The problem was that Glazer's comments were incoherent. Even though he had them written out, a lot of people wanted to see what he had written out to try to figure out what he said. I think what he said that some Israelis are carrying out activities on the West Bank in particular, activities which currently lead to violent assaults on Arab inhabitants of the West Bank. And they are doing it in the name of the Holocaust. What we suffered, we have every right to do what we are doing to you. And I think that's what Glazer was trying to say. In the meanwhile, hundreds and hundreds of Hollywood producers, writers, stars, whatever, have condemned him. The interesting thing is that this incoherent speech, and it was, we were listening, it was incoherent, was applauded by the people in the Oscar audience. I don't, I don't quite know what to do with that. Yay! Yay! What are you applauding? I don't know, but he looked good doing it. I don't know. But this has become a serious problem. And it is in the news every day, still. And people in Hollywood are taking sides still. And whether it's like Steve saying he's entitled to his opinion, but it was the wrong place and the wrong time, and he could have done it in a much better way, in a much better setting, or no Jews are using the Holocaust to defend
Right.
murderous assaults on Palestinians or something. But this is something which is there. And so the question for me is with us, do you think Jews sometimes use the Holocaust to excuse some of our behavior? Do you think there's any reality to that? It's a real question. I don't, a real question means I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. Steve, short, please.
Sure. I would say I don't think I have ever heard that. I think the people in the West Bank you're criticizing think of it as a message from what God promised us, having nothing to do with the Holocaust. And actually, it wasn't the Jews, but other people in the world who cited the Holocaust as a primary reason for voting to recognize Israel in the UN.
Thus, taking the last part of Steve's comment, the birth of the state of Israel was undoubtedly assisted by the feeling of some of those voting in the United Nations that this was a little bit of a payment back to the Jewish people for what they were exposed to during the Holocaust. That's what Steve is saying. I think there was that benefit, if you will, benefit of the doubt or voting support. So there has been a political benefit.
But my key point also was that from the Zionist point of view, the Holocaust was not the reason for the state of Israel. The need for the state of Israel pre-existed the Holocaust and was a priority of the people with or without the Holocaust.
Right. And my feeling is that they never would have gotten the votes in the United Nations without this, without the Holocaust. So, there it is. Do you think the Holocaust is sometimes used by Jews to excuse choices we make, behaviors we have? Do you think? Pardon?
I read everything that Carolyn Glick.
First, did you say maybe?
Carolyn Glick never said it, and I read everything she wrote. She's written.
I'm sorry. Say that again, Howard. I didn't hear.
I do not believe I ever read anything by Carolyn Glick that said that. In fact, I'm sure I never read anything.
That's the second time in all the years in which I've conducted this program that miserable woman's name has been mentioned. Fine.
I've read every column. When she was writing in the Jerusalem Post 20 years ago, I read every column, and I've gotten most of my background about Israel from reading and being stimulated by what she wrote. I think she's a very brilliant woman.
And I'm going to draw a comparison, not that I have any bias. I am among the most bias-free people I know. I am going to say to you that when my in-laws were smoking every day, all day long, pipe cigarettes forever. I mean, my mother-in-law had cigarettes burning in every room in the house so that she could go from room to room and pick up where she left off. And that's not an exaggeration. And my father-in-law with the pipe. And then when Risa was diagnosed with became thankfully a very slight, long gone cancer in the bladder, the doctor said, well, did anyone in your house ever smoke? Because bladder cancer is very often the product of secondhand smoke. Okay. And I would say to you, Howard, that however you've come with regard to some of the positions, you have Carolyn Glick to thank. And I'm going to leave it there because I do not take positions. Now, oh, she's awful. Okay, now, something else is happening. You know how much we paid for COVID with regard to a lot of our social existence, with regard to the kids' education, with regard to our kids' ability to socialize, and workspaces and everything. We paid a lot and weren't even aware that it was happening, but we now know that we paid for a lot. One of the things that happened was the cancellation of many of the youth teen trips to Israel. And of course, birthright trips canceled. And we don't think about the generation that we have failed to inculcate through these youth trips to Israel and birthright, what we lost because they didn't happen. Okay? It wasn't intentional. It was COVID and people did it. Now, to report once again, summer camp trips to Israel
watching.
for Jewish
Mama,
American
you can come in.
for Jewish American teens is down dramatically.
It's no problem.
Brad, we're listening to you. Teen camp trips to Israel dramatically down. Some camps have canceled altogether.
Really?
Instead, many of the purveyors of what were the Jewish summer camp trips for kids to Israel are now offering trips to Central America or Europe or perhaps the far west of the United States.
Wow.
It's just, it's one of those things. I've said it, so there's nothing to say. It's just there. It is part of the unintended consequences. A major part is the parents have said that the kids won't be safe. Another part was the parents said the big value of the trips was that they were carefree, enjoyable experiences in Israel, and that was positive. The big thing is that how can a trip in wartime or with all that's going on inspire positive connections that these trips are meant to do?
Hannibal wrote a private note to you through me that, just going back, she said that the most important thing in the speech was about dehumanization, that humans dehumanize other people. And
That who dehumanize?
Human beings, when they dehumanize other humans, that's when life is bad. That instead of the word Holocaust. That's what she thinks he said.
Okay,
She didn't want to.
I'm sorry, Risa, I don't have the complete thing. Apparently Hannah Gold posted something in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, it was yours truly.
I'm sorry?
It was me.
It wasn't Hannah Gold. It was Don. Don, what did you say?
What I said on the gold comment, was it what I heard him, what I heard in that speech
By Schumer.
No, Jonathan Gold, the director of Zone of Silence. I heard an emphasis on the word dehumanization because that was what he was trying to portray in the movie, and that there has been a certain dehumanization of people, in other places around the world, whether it be, in Ukraine, whether it be in Gaza, whether it be in the West Bank, whether it be in Israel, here in American politics, where there's a demonization of others so that they no longer exist as human beings, but somebody to be, eradicated or eliminated. And what I heard him talk about was that when we sort of adopt this, dehumanization, we descend into the sort of worst characteristics of our being. That's what I heard him. Now, there was a lot of other things in there, and I'm not excusing.
Did he
I'm
freeze?
just saying that's what some people were responding to. And that's part of what I heard, and that's what I picked up on.
Thank you. May I at least say that Don is responsible for all the audio-visual work at Wilshire, all of the electronics. And we love him and are totally dependent upon him. And not only that, I find myself agreeing with at least the thrust of what you were saying. Don, I was still confused. I listened and I
agree. I agree. I certainly woke up to the firestorm as well. And I have to confess, although I was at the show, I was out in the lobby at the time he won the award, so I heard it second. I read it and I heard it in the rebroadcast, but
excuse me, you were in the lobby of where the Oscars were being presented?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was in my seat most of the time, but during that sequence, I wasn't.
Okay, so let's hear it clearly. You had a seat in the auditorium where the Oscars were presented.
Yes.
All
A
right,
little known fact, I'm an Academy member. That was before I got to the Temple. I was an executive in the movie industry.
I'm really impressed. Okay, I'll be your friend. Thank you, Don. Thank you for a very relevant comment. We have a bunch of things left. Adidas. The shoemaker, right? Kanye West. Remember Kanye West, who became Ye, or whatever his name is, and he expressed all interesting forms of anti-Semitism. Adidas canceled all of their contracts with him. That's old news. New news. Adidas still had a vast inventory of Kanye West branded shoes after they severed the contract. I mean, the deliveries were there. Shoes were in the shops when they canceled the contract. And those shoes were sold. People bought them. Last week, Adidas said that it is donating more than $150 million from the profits they made from the people who came to buy the Kanye West shoes, and they're donating it to groups fighting anti-Semitism and other forms of hate.
Beautiful.
Is that not a nice thing?
Beautiful.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, don't say that every time you listen to this, you come away with miserable nightmares. That actually was lovely. We have 2 minutes left, and people keep asking me, because, I have a direct line to God because I'm a rabbi and then I'm a citizen of Israel, so I have a direct contact with the Prime Minister's office. Never. Or God, whatever. When is the government going to fall? What's going to bring it about? How long can it last? Will it last? I mean, some of the people were not anti-Bibi. They were just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? This past week, one member of the current coalition, governing coalition, broke off and is going independent. Gideon Sar, S-A-apostrophe-A-R, Gideon Sar, was part of the left side of the right-wing government. Does that make sense? He was part of the right side. He's part of the left side of a right-wing government. And in that left side, he was the right-winger. But he wanted to bring Bibi down. So we associated with a right-leaning centrist party. He had his party allied with them. He now broke that alliance. He broke with it and has declared himself to be the leader of what he calls the statesman-like right. I don't know what that is, but I think it's a good phrase. Statesman, they call it statesman-like right. So he's again positioning himself to compete against Bibi. He immediately demanded that he be made a participant in the war cabinet. That demand has been rejected. I mean, Bibi obviously doesn't want to enhance Sar, who's going to compete with him. What we see in this, it's obviously confusing, is that the coalition is showing all kinds of signs of cracks. All kinds. And we don't know where this is going to lead, but the break of Sar from the governing coalition is a significant step, which leads me to say in my answers to people asking the question, how long? I think it's reasonable to assume that the current government is gravely ill and may not last much longer. That's a guess. It's not based on any facts. It's trying to read the tea leaves. They don't know. But Israel's government is certainly not stable nor secure. Now, some of you may remember what's happening on March 24th, okay? And I will be taking attendance. And I hope that you'll be there to support this effort to bring this kind of education to Wilshire. And folks, thank you. We got through this pretty well, right? Got through it pretty well. Thank you for being the people you are. See you in a couple of weeks, okay? Wait a second. I mean, Kimberly, you have your hand. What?
Real quick, I'm hoping maybe the next time we can discuss the thing that's been worrying me. So I've been, as a person of color, I've been terrified for the last 7 or 8 years. And now as a Jew, I didn't think it could get any worse. But with the politics of this country planning a Christian nation, I just wonder how the rest of you feel. I don't know what the hell does that mean? Where does that leave us if it's going to become a Christian nation? So that's it.
Okay. I think that yes, that's a topic we'll put on the agenda for next time. Christian nationalism and when does the next boat leave? Yes. Okay. Thank you all very, very, very much. Good day. Good conversations. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Shabbat
Yes.
shalom.
Well, no, it's not Shabbos yet.
Oh, that's true. Sorry.